That's how we do it. Post shoe. Hey everybody, welcome to the Housemarks Radio program, Mega Worldwide Post Show. A little shorter than normal today because I got to go catch a flight because I'm in Vegas, but I'm going to LA tonight, and I'm going to I'll be at NAMM, the National Association of Music Makers, hanging out with some of my music buddies. Hopefully getting to see the DLR band, the David Lee Roth band. Very excited about that. News on that later. And other LA-related stuff. And then I'm in Bellevue, Washington at the Parlor Live this coming weekend, the 31st, 1st, and 2nd. So if you can come down and join us there, that would be awesome. Look, Julie, I took my buds out. Thanks for the reminder. Thanks, Brad. It was a... I appreciate it. Julie's always watching out for me. I can sit there like stuffing my... So, Bellevue, Washington. And then next month, Valentine's Day weekend, I'm in Iowa, in Des Moines. Dates at houseparks.com. And so, yeah, let's. I want to do something real quick. And this is not an ad. It's actually a non-ad ad because I'm not getting paid for this. This is just simply, I think you guys should know about this stuff. Summer worked for these guys. Help them out at CES. It's this company called Whoosh. Let's see if this holds up and you can read it or whatever. And they make a bunch of different device screen cleaning stuff. And their whole thing is tech hygiene. I posted about it a little while ago just because it's they have that they have a screen and this stuff called Diamond Defense. This is one of those screen protectors you put on your screen so it doesn't break, but it also is naturally antibacterial instead of chemical or whatever. So all these sprays are okay around pets, they're okay around kids, and because of Camden and stuff, I got a bunch of this stuff from them and I gave it to his teacher. So that because they use tablets to do some of their assignments in school. And so I was like, please wash these so that people do not get sick. And so I gave her a bunch of these, but it's called Whoosh, WHOOSH, whoosh.com. This is not an ad. I'm not getting paid for this. I just like it. And Summer and I use it all the time, and I recommend it. So there you go. That's my non-ad ad. I wish I had a promo code I could give you. Maybe I'll ask them for one, just for HSRPM. But it's like I said, not getting paid for this. Just wanted to mention it. Whoosh.com. It's not too expensive. A lot of times, they're impulse buy kind of stuff in Best Buy and a couple other places you can find them, but it's easier to get them online or on Amazon. I'll post a link. Yeah, it's about $15. But one spray thing lasts forever, and so we use them all the time. So, and then they have these. Hold on. They have wipes for your devices. So for your keyboard and that kind of stuff. If somebody's using your stuff, it's just good. And it doesn't muck up your technology because some stuff will bleach your keys and mess up your screen and whatever. It's just good stuff. So there you go. That's just my 2 cents. Again, not getting paid to say that at all. There you go. Let's see. When I sub, I use hand sanitizer. Constantly, kids are dirty little creatures. Yeah, exactly. This stuff is nice because it keeps the bacteria from growing on this stuff long term. So, anyways, there you go. Looking for a screen protector for my Fire tablet. They have those. They have big enough screen ones. So, Hal, check out the Boondocks take on Coulter. Funny stuff. Satirizes the strange bedfellows relationship. Boondocks, the real Ann Coulter revealed. I will watch that. Thanks for the heads up, Yamini. N-Dust for electronics is very good too. Yeah, I have Swoosh makes a spray too, like a dust spray. I use that as well. Hey, Justin, welcome. What's happening? In the next generation of YouTube chat, wouldn't it be great if we could chat in our own silly voices, Pee Wee Herman voice? Yeah, I mean, I think there should be in the future, there should at least be the potential for italics and stuff. Oh, Natalie, thank you for the anti-buffering fund or any future technical difficulties fund. Thank you. Well, I was able to solve it, in intermediary, which is helpful. Yeah, it's nice. You know what I mean? So I greatly appreciate that. I'm glad to hear it, man. So I got Zelda saying, "Got to head out. Thanks for all the wishes." Hal, thanks for the song. Love the show today. Thank you, Zelda, and happy birthday. Mark Lamont says, "It sounds like the character that Billy Crystal did in the movie Running Scared." Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I don't like Costanza and Hughes and Costanza because they don't pay me no more, and I'm mad. Yeah, it's pretty close. Hello. Oh, gotta go. Final Jeopardy's on. No, dummy. The answer was Ipswich clams. I'm just upset because a man was watching the Final Jeopardy, and watching Jeopardy, and the man was trying Final Jeopardy, and he did not know what Deuteronomy was. Hal, I hear that the only reason that the guy who wrote Art of the Deal can say whatever he wants is that before Trump learned about the gag contracts, it was before Trump learned about gag contracts to stop people from talking bad about him. That, I don't know, that it would make sense, certainly. I mean, a non-disclosure agreements, he had to be aware of non-disclosure agreements. He had to. But at the same time, maybe he didn't think he needed one from dudes. You know what I mean? I think at some point, like, unless you're a lawyer, he assumes he has them with lawyers. Most of the dudes he's working with in business are as corrupt as he is, so it's not like they're gonna, if he goes down, they go with him, so they're all just protecting it, yeah, but that's, I think he said that he didn't know what, that he's working with, he's used to working with guys, and he only wants non-disclosure agreements with women because of that. Don't forget how it's also Rizzuto's birthday. Phil Rizzuto from the Money Store. Another great Billy Crystal character voice. Or he assumes that if Tony Schwartz wrote the book, he would never say anything bad about him. Yeah, I think that's also, like, true. Like, this guy loves me. Look what he wrote. He wrote that I'm an artist at making deals. How could you write those words and then turn on me, right? It's a I'm going to turn off my laptop. Get back up here. Because I'm going to have to bail out fairly soon to make it to... I'll be on for at least a half hour. Do a half-hour post-show today, if that's okay with you guys, because I have to go catch a plane. And like I said, I'll be doing the show live from... Seattle next week. Art of the Deal was published in 1987, a long time ago. Yeah, I know. I was in high school. Bye, Hal Vickery. Good to see you. I was like, why is it bye? I'm not leaving. Oh, and then I saw the V. Yeah, take care, Hal Vickery. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate you being with us every week. I have to head out. Okay, there, I found it. Okay. Scott Rizzuto from St. Louis, 105.7. Oh, I don't know Scott. Do I? Maybe I do. Art of the Deal was posted. Let's see. I was wondering if you have a nice Gilbert Gottfried imitation. Actually, it's not that hard. But it's not that good either. I haven't really tried it because my Gilbert Gottfried impersonation is largely based on him in Ford Fairlane. Look at us. Two regular dicks, except you're the detective and I'm just a dick. And then, of course, anytime you tell a dirty joke, doing it in a Gilbert Gottfried voice always makes it more palatable. Yeah. What do I have in this hand? I don't even remember. The Susan. Yeah, I've never tried it out loud. I think I've done it only in my head up till now. Bring a coat when you do the February 13th gig. It's 9 degrees here now. 9. Yeah, I know. I was in the Midwest a week ago, and it was 8 degrees. Yeah. I always think of him on Stern or Beverly Hills Cop. I always picture him from, yeah. Yeah, here's to you. And the Aristocrats, yeah. Well, the Aristocrats is the classic one because he, told a dirty joke to break the tension after 9/11, which is something, in our modern PC culture, you probably couldn't get away with today, or people would go, how dare he? But it was necessary at the time. Prostitution should not be prohibition, in my humble opinion. I agree with that. I mean, I find it ironic that most of the people who are against prostitution are right wing and like they do it for like Christian moral reasons, but there's all sorts of other Christian stuff they let go by the wayside they don't care about. I mean, it always goes back to the idea of like being gay is horrible, but Leviticus says that eating shrimp is horrible, and they're on the same par. So meanwhile they'll tell you over a shrimp cocktail while wearing a polycotton blend pants that gay people are going to hell. That selective readings is always the tough part. And that's selective readings are also part of any religion, simply because some of the stuff is tribal and some of the stuff started as the spiritual teachings that should have outlived them. So, should Al Franken do something about Roger Stone backing his accuser? I mean, I don't think that's a winning proposition, anyways. But but if it hurts Roger Stone because of it points out the fact that he selectively cares about that stuff. What about gay shrimp? I hear that's good. I've never tried it, but it sounds crispy. Prostitution and prohibition. What about prostitutes who drink? That's right. It's legal for a prostitute to drink, but not while she's on the job. Is that what you're saying? I don't understand. There's also a state that inadvertently legalized indoor prostitution for a few years, allowing a study to be conducted in the U.S. and violence against women was reduced. Yeah, well, I'm in Nevada. It has its own rules, and it certainly does lower that part of it. There's bodily autonomy has to be something that the law respects to some degree, and I have a joke in my act that I can't say on YouTube without getting demonetized for language, but the idea is that it sort of boils down to how do I reshape this? That accountants are brain hookers. That they allow you to stick your receipts in their brain, and that's a form of prostitution. I really think homophobia is Judaism is just sad. They did it because of Alexander in Greece, probably. No, they did it because of tribalism. Any group that's trying to that's being outpopulated, that tries to outpopulate another group, one of the first things they do is outlaw homosexuality because they need as many babies as possible, and clearly it's counterproductive in that regard. That's largely why the Catholics did it. It's the same reason they outlaw divorce. It's the same reason they outlaw contraception. If you're trying to, outbreed, you're being outbred by your enemy, or you're trying to outbreed your enemy, that it's tribes used to do that. Like, yeah, sorry if you're gay, but you still got to get a wife and have a kid. It's all made up in the Bible. Let's see. They updated Deuteronomy to say gay people are serpents, where it had previously read dragons. I wrote that maybe the next update probably reads snakes, or they probably should update some other stuff. Yeah. Why would you update the Bible? I mean, I think arguably the smart thing would be to go back, before, to where the root Sumerian texts came from, and pare out all the tribalism added by, by the Israelites and by the like pre-Romanic Christians, that stuff. Admiral Akbar has a shrimp fleet ready to vaporize all shrimp eater stores, right? That's a trap. Plus, if you ban homosexuality, you can control everyone's sexuality with gender segregation. Well, if you gender segregate, it's harder to control homosexuality. I mean, that's what they found, was that when you have a situation where you segregate based on gender, you create a rise in homosexuality, what would be, opportunistic sexual activity, that is not based on a natural inclination. That's the weird argument that like right-wingers always make, like, guys in prison are gay and then they stop being gay, so why can't gays stop being gay? And like, they're not gay when they're in prison. They're making do sexually. They don't care. They're using another human being for their sexual needs, which is not the same thing as falling in love with and being sexually attracted to someone of your same sex. It's not the same thing. And so, yeah. Anyways, it would be nice if some people could just join the 21st century. Organized religion is not my idea of good. It depends on which one it is. Jailhouse sex. Yeah, who'd have thunk it? Hard to find or double hidden to prevent them. Hard to find or double hidden to prevent them from being used. It's weird the Catholic Church just adopted homophobia from Tanakh. The priesthood is such a boys' club. Well, and again, look at early tribal strategies and understand that not all of it was just simply made out of ick disgust. That's what qualifies as homophobia or any of the phobias is an automatic fear-based and usually disgust-based reaction to something. It grosses you out instantly. It makes you afraid instantly. That's what it has to be, a phobia. Anything short of that is a prejudice or a bigotry you have come by, and you can be talked out of it and taught out of it over time if anybody actually makes the effort. A phobia is a mental disease. So anytime people just use, I talk about this in my act right now. I've used homophobia, Islamophobia, transphobia, these things kind of interchangeably with bigotry. It's a form, technically what would it be, a form of ableism? Because you're talking to people who have a mental disorder. Any kind of a phobia is a mental disorder. And unless we're ready to say that mental disorders are your fault, we're actually taking some of the responsibility away from bigots when we say that's homophobic or that's transphobic or whatever. That's why I've always said, call racism, racism. Call bigotry, bigotry. And if someone's phobic about the stuff, educate them. I have agoraphobia, right? I've been to Agora a couple of times. It's, I'm just afraid of driving up the 101 to get there. But one of the reasons why, when the Catholics were being outbred in their minds and they outlawed contraception to increase their numbers, tribes and groups have always made these kind of strategic breeding decisions to protect themselves. And so what happens? So you outlaw homosexuality and you outlaw divorce because you want people to stay together and keep having babies. If they can get divorced and have a different mate, whom when they're older, they may not keep having kids. They may, the shuffle thins out. So people stop when you've got options like that. But when you tend to be stuck in one situation like the Duggars, you tend to just keep your wife pregnant all the time. And that's what they were hoping for. So that's what they enforced. Well, when you do that, what do you do with naturally occurring gay people in your environment who aren't going to be able to stay that way, and they're going to get divorced, or they're going to run off, or they're going to get caught with someone of their same sex? What do? Well, the priesthood and the nunneries became receptacles for receiving those people. Okay, we don't want, our son who's clearly not going to get married to embarrass the family by getting divorced because we'll all get excommunicated and it'll all be embarrassed, and it's bad, gives the family a bad name. Send him into the priesthood, cover it. And so it naturally became a receptacle for that circumstance, and what happens is you breed an entire subculture of repressed sexuality into the priesthood when you do that. Catholics also outlawed marriage so that the wealth would stay in the church when priests died. Yeah, right. Because they were in charge of a lot of money, and if they could, and because the Catholic Church has deifies Mary, they had more egalitarian and more kind of natural equality written into the familial structure than, say, Coptic Christians or Muslims did, or even Jews. So keeping the priest from being able to get married and then when divorce happens, divide up an entire church. They couldn't have that happen. Either way, what you're doing is you're clamping down on what you see as the natural tribal inclinations of masses of people, and going, one of the reasons why I fish on Fridays is simply as a resource saving episode. So you could look at it as almost their own first climate change attempt was, look, we can't eat all of our land animals in this, and because it requires grain and other stuff to feed these. So if on Fridays we just eat fish, that is caught. And we can use the idea, we'll make you fishers of men and all that kind of stuff as kind of the colloquial reason as to why why that makes sense, the biblical kind of storytelling aspect of why we would do that. But ultimately, it's so, we can save resources. I'm rolling back to catch it. Hal, cultural illiteracy. People don't know other people. They don't know gay people, black people, Muslims in their everyday lives. Well, certainly some people. I mean, I think cable has changed that more than anything. Obviously, oh, cool, Green Girl. Just bought Whoosh for my office. Oh, good. I'm glad to help. I didn't make a dime off that, but good. Catholics are also outlawed marriage so that wealth would stay in the generation. Oh, yeah, we read that. Okay, so I'm after this. Okay. A lot of people do interact with gay people and black people and Muslims and still maintain their bigotry. And some people have never met one but don't carry any animosity and wouldn't if they traveled to a country where they met them for the first time. Don't carry that. Humans have a wide variety of those things, of responses in these situations. And the more we try to corral that through assertion, the more we kind of peg our own psychology. Organized religion is really for making money and controlling women. No. I think there are certainly like big evangelical movements, mega churches and the like. But I wouldn't rule them out that is the entire organizing principle of what they're doing. There's absolutely the root of what they are teaching from was meant to control sexual behavior, and back then, because there were no condoms, there was no pill, sexually transmitted disease, and there was no way to stop sexually transmitted disease and the like, and we were ignorant about how babies were actually formed pre-Bronze Age. There was you can look at the Bible says, "Do not spill your seed upon the sand," idea that's how we looked at women, as almost like planting fields. We didn't recognize, nor would they know at that time, that women had eggs. They just knew that something came out of guys. And when that something that came out of guys went into a lady, sometimes it grew just like a plant. And so that's where phrases like bun in the oven and, and planting your seed and all that kind of stuff, that's where that came from, How did that one megachurch ever get their third airplane? Let's all pray that they did. I don't think so. They did? Oh, good. I was worried for a second. Well, hopefully, let's pray that they. Let's all join together right now. We're gonna join me in prayer that Joel Osteen's church gets the tanks and anti-personnel mines that they're hoping for. In your between your toenails, amen. So what? They are frauds. I never lies is the man who lies. I'm by my family knows, but they are disillusioned by being, in their terms, a straight relationship because they don't see me as a man. I'm buying my family knows, but they are disillusioned by being in their terms. Oh, they're just. You mean they're confused because in their terms you're in a straight relationship because they don't see you as a man? It's hard to break down what you're saying there. I don't. Here's the thing. If you can't clarify what you're expressing really easily, here's the thing. Everybody needs an elevator pitch for every aspect of themselves they want other people to understand. You need to be able to break down what you're saying about yourself and self-define before you ever expect anybody else to pick up the slack and do that. And that's what self-knowledge is all about. Why you spend time trying to know yourself, and why that's important is so that you can articulate it quickly. You're welcome, Julie. So that you can articulate it quickly and concisely and clearly to people who might not understand it or might have an issue with it. Yeah, I hope that helps. Brad, if you're talking about the guy about his planning as the third plane and gave away the other two to other ministries. Oh, that's sweet. Read all the Dune books by Frank Hebert and some of the other books by Brian Herbert. So is spice God or sex or lust, or is it just cocaine? So I'm a raging liberal. Raging about what? Hal, Mar had a great line last night that regarding the Covington students. After seeing that kid smirking, standing in front of the native elder, I just don't see what priests see in Catholic boys. Oh, yeah. I just started a food drive to help a local homeless shelter. The administrator will admit the government funding is better during Democratic administration, but still votes Republican. Well, that's the crisscross between Leonardo. That's the crisscross experientially. Between people who do something for a religious reason and believe that Christianity is more aligned with the Republican Party, and it's an old. It's hard to shake loose for those people, and so that's the kind of person you win over through kindness. Hey there, J639. What's happening? Lately, I rage in a good way over how AOC is making her Twitter critics look like total doofs. Yeah, you're my favorite actor. Thanks. Experienced racism and classism in school. Covington kids, not a surprise. They should not be tax exempt. Here's the thing. I think elements of churches should not be taxed as long as they're not politically active and all that kind of stuff. That was kind of the whole point. If you're not paying taxes, you don't get to have a say. But every aspect, if you hire secular people to run anything in your church, if you hire anybody else, if Joel Osteen's church has an agnostic or Jewish or Hindu or atheist or whatever, anybody else but evangelical in their crowd running a mixing board in their megachurch, you pay complete taxes, 100%, unless you are an environment in and of yourself. Hey, Michelle. Yeah. If you recent reports of persons coming forth claiming sexual abuse from the Catholic nuns' mushrooms, then the U.S. Catholic Church is really in for it. I don't doubt it. I mean, I think it's, one of the big motions for the Catholic Church will be when they reach, an issue like a zenith with dealing with the sexual issues of the entire system they operate in and how unhealthy it is. In front of our Catholic Church was a sign, God is pro-life. We all knew what it meant, and I told them to take it down. They did. The irony, first of all, the idea that God is pro-life. When he created life, sure, but every living thing dies. Like, it's a goofy statement to make. You can say that, God believes every conceived child should be able to have every chance to, in life to, choose a path for good or discover the wages of sin on their own. Sure. But don't think like, if God created everything, then AIDS, cancer, child molesters, God created Ted Bundy. I mean, that's a Gordian knot morally to unravel, right? But to use such a bumper sticker phrase like God is pro-life is embarrassing. They were saying vote Republican, no question. Hal read on the news that the Covington students were getting death threats. Yeah, not for that, never for that, no need. And by the way, I tweeted an article with some corresponding video that showed the other angles of that it was not as cut and dry as it was perceived. That kid is clearly a jerk, but the idea that he was, representative of, kind of the new swastika is, I think, overblown in that regard. And he's 15. Like, we have to draw a line that if you're we got to treat kids as kids, and that's a parental issue. So if you'll notice, my criticism when I put it up when that story first came out was of his parents and the parenting involved in that. We are responsible for our children, and if someone is not responsible for their child, the response of the community and the country as a whole should be, that's a shame that kid is being raised so poorly. Not, why don't 15-year-olds understand the ramifications of their of their actions or the meaning of what they're doing. It's just like, and that's a baseline rule I have. Kids are kids. Kids should be allowed to be kids, and kids should be allowed to make mistakes. Period. End of story. Because if you do believe in any of the Judeo-Christian values, supposedly, or specifically the Catholic values that his school supposedly represents, the only way you win in that circumstance is by expressing them genuinely. And it's tough. To be honest, I can't believe my actor is reading my comments. So awesome. Oh, well, yep, it happens. Kali creates and destroys. This is true, right? But you wouldn't say Kali is pro-life in that regard. Maybe pro-living, because when you are aware of your mortality, life is more precious to you. So hence the reason for death and destruction and the fall of man is that if it just went on endlessly, you wouldn't appreciate the lessons therein. I'm not for death threats against them, of course, but I am for looking into the school's tax-exempt status and the Pope communicating everyone in the school for the systemic racism. Okay. I think you just swap out the people who are teaching at that school, because it's not the next group of students or the next group of students after that are going to a Catholic school. It's not their fault. If Catholics want to have access to a private school near them, they should have that. But the people running it shouldn't be just using it as a right-wing, tool factory. Hal just learned from watching Oh God Book 2 when George Burns said, can't even up without a down. It just works. Right? There you go. Trump said women must be punished for having abortions, yet he said 2 women have them because he got them pregnant. Right. Well, there is no punishment for the man in this regard. There isn't. Like, hey, you had a relationship that resulted in an abortion. You're an accessory after the fact. That was my favorite soup host. Thanks. I've been toying with the idea of doing like Trump soup. I'm wondering if I'll get in legal trouble. How will you be at the SAG Awards show tomorrow night? I'll be at a viewing party down the street. No, I will not. I will be recording tomorrow. I have sessions all day tomorrow and all night. I'm doing vocals on a new song. The whole group were taunting and acting like buffoons, awful behavior, but it's appalling that the adults are co-signing that behavior. I hold the adults responsible. Something is rotten there. I agree that, the adults that were also there, one of the Native American marchers, who's an adult, was swearing at the kids. The BHI, the Black Hebrew Israelites guys who are crazy, were calling them the F word for gay people, were calling their black friends the N word, and from what it looked like to me, it looked like the native drummer Nathan Phillips, who had come up, and a couple of the other people came upon the BHI and these kids screaming at each other, and assumed because of the MAGA hats that the kids were being racist to the BHI guys, not the other way around, and started marching towards them. And then this guy was just banging his drum and walking the crowd back, and that one kid just stood still and was a jerk, kind of being a wall, because he was like, "Oh, you're backing these guys who are calling us, an anti-gay slur, and you're siding with them, so I'm not going to side with you." It was that complicated a thing, not as cut and dry as just the kid. That being said, if that kid was raised better, he would have had a better response, right? That's how spell soup differently. That's how rappers avoid trademarks. That's right, SOOP, or didn't he say 2 Corinthians, right? A bishop issued an apology to the Covington students. It seems he was forced to do so. Why doesn't anybody ask Trump how many abortions he's paid for? When's your flight? It's at 2, so I think I'm okay. Thank you for the reminder, Brad. Yeah, I got to get out of here. Even for the Catholic Church, why doesn't the man have to confess for being a part of it? Yeah, I mean, I arguably those would, and the Catholics in the audience will be able to let me know, but what sins, of, ethical and moral behavior that aren't just like, vainglory or something like that, that they would have to sort of, confess to, PHA guys were also calling them tomorrow's school shooters. That was uncalled for and mean. That was hilarious and talk soup. Thank you, Trump soup, right? Or SOOP, like a Dr. Zeus kind of spelling. Why hasn't anyone asked Michael Cohen how many abortions Trump has paid for or promised? That, I'm curious if that came up during the closed session stuff, and that people won't want to ask it during the open session stuff because they're worried of how ugly it will look, especially if he says none and they already know the answer to it, even though it's a lie, but they have no way of proving that came through because whatever reasons. Absolutely, the BHI are insane. They seem mentally ill and should have been ignored. We had Christian mental cases at the Women's March, and they were ranting on a megaphone. Right. So many sins, so little time, Hal. Yeah, Tom, you would know. And again, I remember kids and adults all love the idea of a video they are in going viral. Yeah, again, you don't reach kids by calling them Nazis, especially. You just don't. And I don't think that's what these kids' intentions were. I think a lot of them are, engaged in a lot of teenage troll-like behavior, but it doesn't come from someplace deep. But it goes deep if you treat them like adults who need to be burned to the ground. It's that's a genuine concern I have. And like I said, issues with the school sending a group of kids in MAGA hats on an official school trip, it seems, to a March for Life thing, wearing those instead of, representative garb simply of their school, knowing full well that that's seen as a form of gang wear these days. And you could send your school, like, guys, you're not wearing that stuff. You're going to wear our banners. You're going to carry our stuff, or you're not going, as representatives of the school anyways. And the idea is that you're wearing the Make America Great Again hats as opposed to something pro-life. It's just curious to me. You could look at their faces and see that they were still kids and not adults. They shouldn't have been there, period. I agree. I think they were being used by that school, quite frankly. Yeah, they had March for Life gear and didn't wear it. Right. Trump's followers will not care if he's paid for abortions, asking how it would be part. I think that's arguably true. I mean, I think a lot of those people, like I said, even as they would have moral indignation about someone else behaving the way he has behaved, they are jealous of him having multiple wives and his supermodel current wife and his, sleeping with porn stars and all that kind of stuff. They think it's cool, and they're like, man, I wish I could do that. That's how that they literally emotionally react to him that way. So they don't believe the criticisms of him about those things, which seem obvious, signs of hypocrisy, go nowhere. But yeah, saw a priest wearing a March for Life cap. Yeah, I mean, do that. You want to march for life? Do that. This is America. You can, you can protest if you really feel it. That's the whole point. I think the kids bought the hats from a street vendor. Poor choice. Yeah, but as the parent in charge of the whole thing, or the priest in charge of it, like, nope, guys, we're not wearing political gear. This is about unborn children. Like, how do you not make that case unless you are on board with that? And that's the problem I have with the adults that would be running that. Another great show. Safe travels today. Have fun tonight. Thank you so much, Lisa Ann, for joining us. I want kids involved with social protests, but someone needs to set rules. I think that's smart. I think it's a little weird when children are brought to pro-choice or anti-choice rallies, because they seem to be used as leverage, emotional leverage. Thank you, Seattle Suzy Q. Just decided to go whale watching. That's awesome. Use of kids for political purposes is wrong. I agree. No one ever said where the caps came from, did they? I don't think so, but they're definitely for sale everywhere. And these are teenage Kentucky kids. Like, they're gonna. MAGA does not equal KKK. It's not exactly the same thing, and it undermines the argument against the KKK to say so. Again, one of the biggest things a monster wants you to think is he's not alone and you can't escape. I always think of those people who manage to keep people trapped in their homes, like, that dude in Cleveland who kidnapped those two girls and had them in his house for a long time. One of the ways he did it was by constantly making them think that he was part of a big network of other people, and if they escaped and went home, even if he got caught, his people and the people like him in his network would kill them or kill their families. It was all BS, but it worked, and it kept them under control. One of the, that statement is, that one of the greatest tricks the devil ever played was convincing you he did not exist. I think the opposite is true, and I've mentioned this before, but I think one of the biggest lies the devil makes people believe, metaphorically speaking, is that he's everywhere, that you're surrounded, that you have no allies, that there is an enemy and that enemy is unreachable, that the world is full of monsters, do not make human bonds. And that's the push. It just is. And you have to be able to constantly do the hard work of making that distinction with every person you meet. And don't get me wrong, if somebody's wearing a Ku Klux Klan outfit, they're clearly wearing the uniform of that. And there are certainly groups of guys who wear MAGA hats to show those ideas. But it doesn't automatically mean that you disengage from someone wearing a MAGA hat or some sort of garb that's been wearing it the whole time. In the same way that some people are big R Republicans, and they wear that on their shirt no matter what the Republican Party has done. They're emotionally reachable on a lot of issues. That's where you find these people who are like, they loved Obamacare except for the name, that kind of stuff. It's a human failure, and you have to be open to addressing that human failure. That's my personal belief. How we paint these kids will create the way they will defend themselves possibly for years to come. That's true. I love your show. I've been listening for years. I learn to laugh every week. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. Thanks for popping in here and saying something. The devil in the White House. Hal-splaining again. Damn straight. Remember some of the HS students in photo of a basketball game with blackface makeup, another indication that something is wrong here? Yeah, but those kids didn't walk into that school that way. That's the difference between that school and how it teaches Catholicism and another school that doesn't do that. And it's important to know that those kids aren't born that way. They're raised in being educated that way, or they're not being educated out of it that way. Oh, Flip Wilson passed away? But that's been a while. That didn't just happen, did it? All right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And I was like, I'm like, yeah, I think he passed away quite a while ago. Yeah, like in the 90s. I was going to throw right-wing books in the trash when I see them at the library. Yeah, don't. But you can, nothing's stopping you from taking a Post-it note and putting Bible verses that contradict what they're saying in them and sticking them inside so that the people who check them out encounter those. Or, you know, because you're not destroying the book and you're not harming them. Post-it notes in books that are awful are a great way to go. Just saying, little subterfuge. Anyone see the group shot of Indiana high school students flashing the Nazi salute? Mm-hmm. Someone referenced Flip Wilson further up in the chat. Yeah, I saw that and I was like, yeah. So yeah, and again, and I I'm gonna take off in like 2 minutes, but I really honestly, whenever it's a kid in any of these circumstances on in a protest march, anytime if they're under the age of 18, and I know that there's levels of maturity beyond that, in some cases we try teens as adults and blah blah blah. But I think it is a healthy standard to have as a liberal and a progressive that we look at people under the age of 18 emotionally, in the same way that we do legally, that we agree with that. Because once you stop agreeing with that, you also disagree with all the other protections afforded to people because they are under 18. I've always said that, like, in Florida at one point they were trying to try a child as an adult at 12 years old for murder, and that was a death penalty state. And I was like, one of my ways of pushing back on that was anybody who calls for the death penalty for a 12-year-old is saying they would have sex with a 12-year-old because they believe they can make adult choices. So only a pedophile would support trying a 12-year-old as an adult. Because the slippery slope there is they can make adult decisions, and I will take advantage of them making what I consider an adult decision. And I just believe that we have a standard of 18, and we live that way. No secret that children want to belong. Adults exploit children in multiple ways. Exile the bad adults from your organization. Exactly. Thanks, Billy. But it's true. Anybody who argues for a child to be tried as an adult wishes they could do things with an adult. I think that was Willie Gomer who posed that idea. And multiple people have. He's not the first. This goes back to friggin' when I was in high school. They were talking about this. Like, there was, a 12, but I very distinctly remember them being 12 years old. And I was like, most people's brains aren't done cooking until they're 22. They're still immature even up to that point. There's a reason why we send people, like, yet 18 is, when we send you off to be a soldier. It's because your brain's still malleable, Right, Julie. Yeah, I think even 18 is too young to be an adult. I agree, and there's variance in anything, but how many songs by adults are out there about 16-year-old girls? 3 at least that I know of. Now, granted, the market for those kind of songs is often about, sung from the point of view of 15-year-old boys is usually like literally the song Christine 16, which is written from an adult point of view about the girl, was like literally their main market's like 14, 15-year-old boys. So that's an older woman, it gets murky. But what I'm saying is that, here's the thing. I believe in the death penalty for people. I just believe it cannot be administered without making mistakes. I believe, as far as the death penalty goes, certainly not for a child, anyone, who's under the age of 18, period, or who has the mental capacity of a child, but, at most life imprisonment, period. But you cannot have a death penalty without killing someone who's innocent. It's just not possible. There's no way to be 100% sure, and there's no way to undo it because the person is dead. The number of people who've been let out of jail after being in there for 30 years should be indicative of the fact that if we've made that kind of mistake, we've definitely made that mistake with someone getting killed. It is just not possible. And I don't know anyone who's been a victim of a crime, no matter how much they hate the person that did it, that would say, if you came to them and said, yeah, we can kill this person, we caught them, we know, it's them, red-handed, but to have this system in place where we put them to death, we have to kill 2 other innocent people in the next 10 years. It's just got to happen. It's going to happen, and if we kill him, we kill them too, because we can't just do this once. This is a system. And I don't know anybody who's lost a child or whatever who would go, anyone else deserves to lose a child. I don't care if you kill an innocent person. I want that person dead. You know, once the state has them, lock them up and block them up. That's it. Hal, it's remarkable how often we not only agree, but we agree on the thought process used to arrive at a particular conclusion. Well, that's because you're very smart, Carl. And I try to be very smart every day of my life. So, you know, obviously we're going to meet in the middle somewhere. Hal, if we can't get the death penalty perfect, then we shouldn't do it at all. Exactly. That's the reason for not having a death penalty. It's not because some people don't deserve it. It's not because some people, you know, like I just watched all the Bundy tapes shows yesterday while I was prepping for the show and going through documents and stuff. And Summer turned it on and left it on and fell asleep. And now I'm like wide awake watching, you know, the Bundy tapes. And this, I would be lying if I didn't say that there's a majority of my soul that would have taken great pride in personally beating that man to death. But that's why we have a society. That's why we maintain. Because to do that, as difficult as it was to convict him, as awful as it was, the process and how crappy he was, he was his own attorney and all that kind of stuff, and he basically torturing witnesses by them being cross-examined by him, and all the stuff that goes with the uncomfortable aspect of our legal system, and the uncomfortable, I forget who said it, but it is better that 10 guilty people go free than one innocent person be punished, certainly applies to the death penalty. And I would have not had the death penalty because who got scooped up in that with him? So what's the name of the Bundy series? I think it's the Bundy tapes. Yeah. I lived in Florida when Bundy was executed. Yeah. Ted. Estimate I heard that 4% of death sentences are imposed on innocent prisoners. That's why I'm generally against it. Yeah. 1 is too many. The death penalty is a system. As such, it is open to human error. It can't be part of a system that inevitably executes the innocent. Exactly. You don't solve the problem. And besides, most of these people, especially people who are involved in multiple homicides, he, in the last 48 hours before they killed him, he started telling, where people were buried and details of crimes and stuff. But he didn't get all the way through it. He didn't tell everybody that he had murdered. And there's still unsolved murders out there that Ted Bundy committed, and those families don't get closure. And someone else may have gone to jail for that murder, been convicted of it, and then they're sitting in jail right now. Can't be exonerated because he's dead now. Thank you, Julie. Yeah, this is it. In Sweden, the maximum penalty for any crime is 20 years. Yeah, that's stupid. That's ridiculous. Some people deserve to be in jail for the rest of their life. There's no question. It's just, that's absurd. Sweden, you're being dumb. Death penalty also was needed in earlier days to protect society from the worst cases of horrible behavior. That's why the rules on insanity are so strict. That's true. But also, back then, you didn't have supermax prisons where you could keep somebody locked in. Ted Bundy escaped twice. Now you can incarcerate people for life and they can stay in there and you can feed and house them and you have the ability to provide them with medical care, but they're just not going anywhere. We are protecting society from them. We're not enacting revenge. And this idea that that police just have it out for people, and that that there's not a genuine reason why there's a lot of prisoners. And by the way, the whole this argument about, and this came up during the the firefighters, that that it's slave labor because we're using people in prison to fight fires and that kind of stuff, is garbage. Because it's optional. You don't have to do it. You can just serve your time. If you've got 20 years, do your 20 years. But if you want to get out in 10, you can have good behavior. What's one of the good behaviors? You can actually have a job and show that you can be productive, or you can do something that is a service needed by the state to prove your worth and your reliability, so that we have a reason to let you out early. Otherwise, just sit in the cell. And by the way, one of the reasons, again, we've talked about this before, one of the reasons why the United States has more people in prison than a lot of other states, one is because of the freedoms we have. There are more bifurcations in the law. The more freedoms you have, the more laws you can break, because in every freedom, there's 100 little areas. Instead of going, that's just not, you're not allowed a gun in Russia, period, like that kind of thing. So any gun you have, you're in jail. So nobody has them. But if you have guns, but you try to sell a sawed-off shotgun on eBay, you're going to jail. So the more freedom you have, the more bifurcated, smaller crimes you will have. And people will go to jail for those things. The other thing is, more of our prisoners stay alive. A lot of other countries convict and incarcerate more people than we do, and more of a part of a wider swath of their populace, but those people just die. They just kill them. Oh, thank you. I'm going to get stuck again. You're right. I've overshot the show by a half an hour because it's a great conversation, because you guys are wonderful. Thanks so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you like the show, come see us every Saturday, 9 to 11 Pacific time on WCPT Radio. I do the show, and then I do a post show afterwards. I'm giving this spiel because people sometimes just watch the post show, guys. And thank you, chatters. I appreciate you guys. It's always a great conversation, and we will continue to talk about these things until they are solved, which might be forever, but okay.